Evening, everybody. Welcome to the Future Birmingham podcast. Sorry we are late. My previous guest had a family bereavement. Unfortunately, wasn't able to join us, but we shall get him in booked for the coming days. This evening with me, we have the independent hopeful for Alum Rock. Alum Rock. A young, dynamic, up-and-coming councillor, Nosheen Khalid, with a strapline that she is the voice of change. Huge statement for Alum Rock, huge statement. So Nosheen, first of all, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
I appreciate you coming out on a Friday. I know it's campaign time. I know you should be
is.
out door knocking.
Yeah.
You've been very active doing your campaigning, but thank you for joining
No, of course,
us.
anytime, Abid.
So, who is Nosheen?
Who is Nosheen?
Who is Nosheen?
Nosheen is first and foremost a mum of 3 kids.
Okay, mashallah.
But who I am in this context, I have political experience. I've been a member of the Labour Party for around 10 years.
Okay.
I was elected on the LGC. I used to sit on a panel to interview potential councillors, anyone that wanted to be a candidate. I've been an election agent.
Okay.
And more than that, I've been entrenched in community for as long as I can remember.
Okay, fantastic. So what motivated you to stand as a councillor and why now? I mean, you've been in the political sphere for many years.
Yeah.
What?
So I've always wanted to make change in the background, and I always feel like that's the best way to enact any kind of change. So on the local government committee, it was creating policy for the wider West Midlands Labour Party. And when in my community work, you know, setting up food banks or, you know, summer schools for youth, first aid courses, things that make real impact day to day. And I never wanted to come into something that was public facing, because I feel like the second you're public facing, your intentions are a little bit muddied. Are you doing it for yourself? Are you doing it for the community? But I feel like when you reach a point, and the point that Alum Rock is at now, where it looks like we're at the precipice now, it's either change or it's continuing down the same trodden path where we get nothing. And you have the ability to bring change, and you don't do that, you do a disservice to yourself and you do a disservice to your community.
So you've been in the political game for a while. You've been part of the Labour Party. What do you feel with the Labour Council for the last 13, 14 years? What do you feel has gone wrong? Why is there such a decline?
Where do we start? Where do we start? You know, if we talk about the Labour Party as a party and their relationship with ethnic minorities and people from our communities, and the fact that they've taken the vote for granted for so long, that's a whole other kettle of fish. But if we talk about the Labour Council, we can talk about the failures with the Oracle system. We can talk about the huge failures, huge financial failures that ordinary residents are having to bear the brunt of. Financial mismanagement that has led to us now being in a position where we're barely clawing onto survival as opposed to rebuilding, as opposed to levelling up. And Birmingham is falling behind. And there's other cities like Manchester that are making strides. But Birmingham's financial mismanagement, whether that is the Oracle system or the equal pay issue and the declaration of bankruptcy, amongst many, many other things,
many failures,
has led to this.
So when did you leave the party and what?
So I left. So I allowed my membership to lapse in 2023, and for obvious reasons over what was happening in Palestine. You know, I am, for all intents and purposes, a socialist, and I have left-leaning policies, and I didn't feel like that aligned with the way Keir Starmer was taking the party anyway.
Okay.
But I feel like Palestine is the moral litmus test of our time. And I couldn't reconcile my personal beliefs and the line that the party was taking. I mean, we all know the infamous, you know, Israel has a right to withhold water and food from Palestinian children. That's not a party that I could feel that I could call my political home any longer.
Well, on a local level, the decline of Birmingham has been over the past 5 years.
Yeah.
In its intensity. Okay, now it's really bad, but this started, I would say, around about COVID time. So did anybody actually raise a voice at that time? Any Labour councillors or any Labour staff saying what's going on?
So I can only speak for myself. I can't speak for other people. I held people to account whilst I was in the Labour Party. I was sent messages saying we're gonna, you know, this is libel. Delete your tweets, delete your this, delete, you know, because I said things about sitting MPs and sitting councillors, because I don't believe that just because you're part of a party, you must toe the party line, because you have to stand up for the people that don't have a voice. And unfortunately, Alum Rock has not had a voice, and it's not had a voice for longer than 5 years.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. Cool. So, to the TikTok viewers, this is on TikTok Live. I can see there's some crazy engagement. Thank you very much. Please do send your questions in. I will be casting an eye on it as and when I can. So if a question pops up in front of me, I will put the question over. Sorry, Fazan, just give me 1 second. Let me just see your question. Okay. So I'm going to be doing questions off there as well as my own questions. So can you name one education policy that the council controls, and what would you do to change that?
So education policies, they're government-wide when it comes to education.
It's not local, is it?
It's not local. But when it comes to the knock-on effects of the lack of resources, for example, we have 4.5 days in a lot of inner-city primary schools.
Okay.
We talk a big talk about parents pulling kids out from schools and the effect of, 1 day missed is this.
And the fines are
and the fines are ridiculous. But actually, that's 2 days a month.
Yes.
Over the course of a year that our children are missing out on. And then you look at the fact that, a lot of the parents in inner city areas are working shift work.
Yeah.
Both parents are working. What do they do?
It becomes a huge challenge.
Where do they send their children, right?
And childcare isn't cheap.
Childcare is not cheap. But then what the council does control is the social side of things. The youth services, there's been 2.6 million, don't quote me on that, cuts to youth services. That has an impact, where the schools are already under-resourced, where the schools are already oversubscribed. If you look at any of the schools in Alum Rock, they're hugely oversubscribed. Yeah. They all have waiting lists.
I don't think it's Alum Rock, I think that's Birmingham
wide. It's Birmingham-wide, but I have a particular
interest
in
Alum Rock.
My focus is on Alum Rock. And then, so they're not teaching them soft skills. They're not teaching them CV writing. They're not teaching them interview skills. When I was at school, we used to have this national record of achievement, and we used to have a careers guy, and you'd go there and they'd teach you how to apply for college, and
the big folders
that we thought were going to be our life's work. Don't even know where it is right now. But we had all of that. Our kids don't have that. They don't have that, and so as a consequence of that, they need something outside of school.
Yes.
But those services have been decimated, absolutely decimated. There is no youth services.
But they have TikTok.
But they have TikTok. But they have TikTok. So to answer that question, the council has not done what it could in terms of youth services to counter the effect of lack of funding into schools.
Okay, brilliant. So, you talk about change, but what does change actually look like in practical terms in the first 12 months, just say?
For me, it is the most basic thing, and that is real, on-the-ground representation. Somebody that is present, somebody that's going to listen, somebody that is engaged with residents, and somebody that will go into that council house and raise the issues that are affecting the residents.
Just on that point, though, as an independent, do you feel that your voice will be heard?
With the current trajectory in the polling, if we're looking at it, there's going to be a coalition of sorts.
Absolutely.
Labour themselves are predicting to lose a massive amount of seats.
Yes. And
if it so happens that independents are part of that coalition, which if the current polling, which is showing that independents will take a massive amount of seats. If it goes the way they're saying it's going, independents will be part of that coalition. And if they are a part of that coalition, we will have a say.
But the way the polls are suggesting that independents have the majority, whose policy do you follow?
So this is where it gets tricky. I mean, should I sit here and
as a parent and as a resident of Birmingham, I am worried because I feel, this is my personal view, things will get a lot worse because egos kick in.
Yeah.
Brothers kick in,
yeah.
Your connections kick in,
yeah.
Your family kicks in.
Yeah.
And then you're going to find and this is a real concern for me. And I've had some really credible independent candidates on this so far. Honestly, I think fantastic. But one thing that does worry me as a father, as a resident of Birmingham, is that if the independents get in, which it looks like they will, there's going to be a massive disconnect. And then I feel that
amongst the independents.
Yes, and then I feel one's going to be dragging it that way, one's going to be dragging it that way. And if you don't agree, then egos kick in, as you know.
Yeah.
So whose law or whose school of thought or whose policies will you be following?
If we just look at what happens within the Labour Party itself and the factionalism that exists, whether we look at national government and whether we look at local government, very recently, if you look at when there's elections for Labour leader and we see what happens.
But with the Labour Party, a lot of the councillors, as we know, and that's why we're here today, they've just remained stump.
They have
remained silent.
Yeah.
They've reserved their right to remain silent.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's whatever the party has said,
They toe the party line. So to continue on from what I'm saying, so, factionalism and people not agreeing and everybody not seeing eye to eye is completely normal in politics, regardless of the party. Should I sit here and pretend I have all the answers and I know exactly how it's going to play out? No, I don't know how it's going to play out. But what I do know, that if you have a group of committed, community-based people who actually care about each individual area, it's going to be a lot better than the current situation that we've got going on. Will there be teething problems? Probably, yes. But have we seen very good examples of this? For example, the Walsall Independence. We look up north, we've got the Bradford Independence. People banding together and being able to kind of push the issues aside.
You've got that, but then I'm not sitting here to kind of show a bad reflection on any particular party, but I'm seeing already within the independents that there's sub-independent committees.
Of course there is.
Already.
Of course there is. Yeah, of course there is. Look, once we are in, there is gonna have to be conversations, and there's gonna have to be difficult.
Too late.
I don't think it's going to be too late. I think, look, if we, at this stage we start to create alliances or try to create groups and unite ourselves, then we're no longer independent. We're part of an organisation, right? But as it stands in the moment, the appetite in Birmingham, the appetite most especially in Alum Rock, is for independence. And I do think this is a bridge we're going to have to cross once we get to it. We can't predict what's going to happen.
Do you feel the independents are going to win or Labour's going to lose?
I think the independents are going to. Well, the independents are going to win because Labour's going to lose.
It's a bit like the
what came first, the chicken or the
election.
egg?
Yeah, I mean it's a bit like the previous general election.
Yeah.
Labour didn't win. The Tories lost.
Yeah.
Okay, I was part of that.
Yeah.
Okay, so Labour didn't win. Tories lost. And
in this instance, Labour are going to lose.
Yes.
Labour are going to lose, and Labour are going to lose because of their own failures. And that's not just council failures, that's individual failures in at a ward level. Complete lack of presence. If you ask anyone on a doorstep...
There's just a question here, sorry. Yeah, sure. Are you going to tackle the newly launched 30 mile per hour speed limit? I have a personal vested interest in that. I know that's not your remit.
It's not my remit.
I get that. So I mean, these questions are coming in, and it's good that they're coming in. Yeah. I don't think people sometimes understand the difference between national politics and local politics. Yeah. Could you just please elaborate on that?
So look, councillors don't have decision making when it comes to, for example, the NHS, or when it comes to schools, but what they do have is the ability to represent residents, and what they do have is the ability to push on budgets, to scrutinise policy decisions, to push for better resources for their areas, and that's where the current councillors are failing.
Someone who likes your message but questions whether you have the experience to deliver it.
Yeah.
What's your response to that?
I have the experience. I've been in politics for a long time. I've been in politics.
Any tangible evidence of that?
I mean, like I said, I've been on the LGC in policy. I've been responsible for policy making. I've interviewed people who I sat on a panel and interviewed people who wanted to be Labour councillors, some of whom are current Labour councillors. I've run an election campaign before. I've been an election agent, actually, for the person who you probably have a bit of a gripe with.
I've got no gripe with nobody.
30 miles an hour.
I'm totally independent.
30 miles an hour.
No names here. I'm a nice man.
Look, currently in Alum Rock, the Labour councillor is a cabinet member for health and social care. Yeah. If we're going to say what impact is a independent who doesn't have any role or isn't able to be a part of a party and have a position or be part of the cabinet or have a scrutiny committee or whatever, what impact is that person going to have?
Interest, isn't it?
What impact has this cabinet member had in the last 14 years other than building their own portfolio? What has been done to use that position to better the lives of residents of Alum Rock? Okay. You have to ask that question if you're going to ask this question. Are you
Alum Rock born and raised? Or?
Alum Rock born and raised. My dad's Alum Rock born and raised. We've been here since the 50s.
What are the current issues in Alum Rock?
There's a myriad of issues. There is where do you start? When I knock the doors, and like I said, I always said from day one, from my campaign launch, I want my policies to be dynamic. I want them to continuously reflect whatever I hear from residents. I don't want it to be like, I've decided that these are the issues of Alum Rock, therefore this is what we're going to deal with. No, I want to hear what residents are saying. And when I speak to residents, fly tipping, obviously, massive issue. And I know people are like, oh, the people of Alum Rock are dirty. Actually, fly tippers come from outside.
Just on that point, when I launched this podcast, and I spoke to the team here, they said, let's go do a video in Alum Rock.
Yeah.
And the first video was actually done in Alum Rock
Yeah.
when I launched this podcast.
On the corner of Gowan Road, wasn't it?
Unfortunately,
Yeah.
it's the reputation it carries.
Yeah. And a lot of that fly tipping, because I go round and I report it. We have a team that reports it. If you look through the rubbish, which we do look through the rubbish, you find letters from people living in Sheldon and people living. There's a lot of these rogue kind of people that do waste management. They'll come and they'll collect your waste. You'll pay for them to collect your waste because because Birmingham City Council are not collecting it, and they'll come into our areas and they'll dump it. I'm not saying residents are completely free from blame and residents don't dump. Of course, residents do dump, but there is an enforcement to counter that, and on that, I want to talk about something, Abid. I want to talk about these petitions that we're seeing from councillors and MPs.
Okay.
Because you don't have a gripe with anyone, but my God, do I have a gripe with this? Because I just want to understand, petitions are used for people who don't have power, who don't have a voice, to be able to have their voice heard, to band together, to notice, okay, we have an issue with fly tipping on the corner of our road, we could do with a camera here. So let's all get together, put a petition, submit it to our councillor, who'll submit it to full council. Yes. And when people who are in the very corridors of power where decision-making takes place, where allocating of resources takes place, where they should already be aware of long-standing issues, are now coming, including the MP for Ladywood, are coming forward and saying, please sign this petition so we can get cameras, when you are the very people responsible for allocating resources. That now is performative. This is theatre. This is political theatre and nothing else. And I have a real gripe with it, because how long do you think you're going to pull the wool over people's eyes? You are the decision makers. You're a cabinet member. You're an MP. You're the Home Secretary. And you need a petition to decide that there's going to be cameras on the corner of Tyree Road. Give me a break.
Okay. Do you have any plans for the traffic congestion and parking issues in Alum Rock?
So I've spoken to a lot of residents about parking issues, and parking permits, residence permits is something that we've spoken about on one-way streets, maybe like diagonal parking, something to kind of ease up, because there's massive.
But even diagonal parking is going to cost money.
Everything's going to cost money.
Where does that, because we're
probably from the 22% council tax rise that we've had over 3 years that has been allocated for frontline services,
So there's also mention of some funding we've had. I don't know how many millions of
63
funding.
or something.
Where's that going? And
I mean, your guess is as good as mine. I'm not part of the council as of yet, inshallah, come May. But as of yet, I don't know what they're doing with that. I know that they've allocated for frontline resources, the money's coming from council tax. So we're paying for our frontline resources. We're paying for these food bins, and we're paying for the collections and the mobile household waste recycling centres and the extended hours and whatever supposed imaginary fictional youth centre we're going to have.
So Alum Rock Road, as well as Stratford Road, as well as Ladypur Road, as well as Coventry Road, has seen a recent influx of the shops being extended out to the pavements, which is causing obviously a massive hazard for pedestrians and people with prams and disabled people. How do you tackle that?
So the overarching theme in Alum Rock, whether that's been for the high street, for fly tipping, for HMOs, for any other of the issues, parking, is lack of enforcement. The only place there seems to be enforcement is parking tickets on the Alum Rock High Street. Yeah. Aside from that, there is no enforcement, and there's no enforcement because there's no real representation, because our councillors have been missing for so long. They don't know what's going on in the ground, and so they're not doing the work to ensure it happens. I'll give you an example. Sandbourne Road is a road in Alum Rock where I was contacted by residents on a number of occasions that there's some trees on the road, and the tree trunks have made the pavement rise a foot up in some instances. Wow. And a few people have ended up in hospital because of it, because there's only 2 street lamps on the street. And as a result of that, they've fallen, they've hurt themselves, they've ended up in hospital. They've been contacting the MP for a year now, the councillor for a year now, and they've not heard anything back. All it took was me writing an email, sending it over to the now independent councillor in Alum Rock, telling him who to send it to, the Keir Steward, and the tree officer. Mm-hmm. And within a week, they were out. Overnight, repairs were done in the most dangerous parts of that street. And 3 trees have been signposted to be removed because they're too dangerous. Okay. The pavement is going to be resurfaced. Okay. That could have been done a year ago. That could have prevented a couple of people ending up in hospital. It's as simple as that. But you have to be invested in the area. And if you're not invested in the area, and not only that, if you have no engagement with your residents, then you're not going to know what the issues are. And if you don't know what the issues are, you're not going to solve them.
Antisocial behaviour.
Yeah.
Alum Rock. Huge problem.
Huge problem.
And there's that, from what I understand, there's that food park opening as well.
Don't start me.
Yeah, so this, we could talk about Alum Rock. So just, I've got nothing against Alum Rock. I was kind of raised in Alum Rock.
Yeah.
I went Washington School back in the day.
Yeah.
So I actually have some sort of affiliation to Alum Rock, and
Yeah.
I love the area.
Yeah.
But there's so many issues as opposed to other areas in Birmingham. So the antisocial behaviour obviously is huge.
Yeah.
Alum Rock's known for it.
Yeah.
How do we tackle that?
So look, you can't look at symptoms without looking at the cause. And the cause is, in Alum Rock, 68% of children live below the poverty line. They live in deprived households. There is a 48% overcrowding in households compared to like 2.5% in areas like Sutton Mere Green. Okay, you're looking at youth centres that have been sold off. Reduced hours in places like the Naseby Centre. Like I said, 2.5 or 2.6 million pound in cuts in youth services. Okay, we have GP surgeries where the recommended amount of patients per GP is 1,800. We have around 2,500. We don't have GPs anyway. We have pharmacist prescribers.
Yeah.
Seeing so these are all symptoms. HMOs is an Article 4 direction over the whole of Alum Rock.
Yeah.
The whole of Birmingham.
Yeah.
And supposedly there's like 71 HMOs. There is not. There's probably 71 on a street.
Yes.
Yes. Illegal HMOs, that are changing the fabric of the city and they're changing the fabric of Alum Rock. These are all issues that are leading to these problems. If kids are not employed, HS2 promised jobs. I think we saw 2% of apprenticeships go. I actually spoke to the HS2 representative. They're going to send me over a data set.
Listen, I think he's published. I think the CEO was published today as saying he's the highest earning CEO.
Yeah, well, there's been community grants, and if you look, because it's publicly available information, if you look at where these community grants have gone, it's publicly available information, so I'm going to say it. But a lot of Labour-affiliated organisations have received these grants. So are they then going to hold HS2 to account for buying off our assets, for closing down our streets, for not reinvesting into our areas, for not giving apprenticeships to children from our areas? If they're out on the streets and the bob shop, the 20 bob shops that are in a 10-metre radius are selling them nitrous oxide, they're going to buy it. Don't look at the symptoms, look at the causes.
Okay, quick fire. One word to describe.
Oh, don't do
Alum
one
Rock
word.
right
I like
now.
to talk. Neglected.
One word to describe
Forgotten.
Alum Rock right now.
Forgotten.
Neglected. One word to describe what it needs.
Representation.
Biggest issue in the area.
Lack of funding, lack of resources.
Fix business or fix housing first.
Housing.
Work with Labour or challenge them.
Work with everyone to get the best outcomes.
Are you a community voice or a council influence?
Community voice.
TikTok or door knocking?
Door knocking.
Experience or fresh perspective?
Both.
Toughest part of campaigning so far?
The time. Intensive. Time intensive.
One promise you guarantee to deliver?
To always be present.
Okay.
Got any questions for me?
There's loads of questions here. I'm just trying to gauge it. Sorry, people, I'm just trying to read them as I'm going. There is a drug epidemic, balloons, etc. How will you tackle this?
Look, I bang on about this. I harp on about enforcement. But enforcement is super important. If we don't have bob shops opening up, selling...
The thing is, how do you enforce the enforcement?
Resources. You need resources. You need money invested. Look, Alum Rock is not
The
starting
general
off...
attitude in Alum Rock, and I'm sorry to say this, but...
Don't say anything about my beloved Alum Rock.
A traffic warden is scared to issue a ticket. The police are afraid to come and do anything in Alum Rock because...
I don't know. I have a good relationship with the local policing team.
It causes a ruckus. It's like I've said it for years now. We're living in a lawless society. It's becoming lawless.
It's lawless because of the top-down approach towards it.
So enforcing the enforcement, I think, is a huge challenge. And you're right. Maybe it has been neglected, and maybe people are too comfortable now with not giving two hoots.
Yeah. Look, Abid, you have to look at it like this. If you take a less disadvantaged area and you take Alum Rock, they're starting off at two completely different starting points, right? You cannot then just brush over and start doing enforcement without making sure that baseline services are there. You know, you've got to make sure the kids have got somewhere to go. You've got to make sure that there's adequate, social and, you know, kind of medical adjacent services. There's got to be things. There's got to be awareness workshops. There's all kinds of things that can be done to improve the quality of life of people living in Alum Rock. Until you do that, if you come down with an iron fist on a community that has already been neglected, that does not have resources, that feels forgotten and abandoned, and then you're going to then enforce, that's not going to work. It has to be a bottom-up approach. You have to first fix the problems and then bring enforcement in. But when it comes to things like nitrous oxide and drugs and bob shops and all the rest of it, they need to be dealt with. They need.
But everyone's talking about dealing with them.
But
the
look,
Sparkhill councillors are saying the same thing. I'll
give you an example, Abid. I'll give you an example. I'm going to drop names here, so forgive me. But Liam Byrne was MP of, Alum Rock came in his constituency for a long time, and nothing was done about bob shops or any of this encroachment on the Alum Rock Road. He went over, and suddenly the boundaries change, and then suddenly I see a post from Liam Byrne about the beautiful village of Castle Bromwich and this bob shop that's got these gaudy lights up, and we can't have this. And overnight it was closed down, and I thought, so is there nothing beautiful or worth preserving about Alum Rock? Are the communities of Alum Rock not deserving?
It's the forgotten postcode.
It's the forgotten. It definitely is the forgotten postcode, but I'm going to make sure that it's not forgotten for much longer, inshallah.
Okay. I like the passion.
I'm very passionate about it. Alum Rock's my home. It was my father's home, my grandfather's home. It's home for me, and I wouldn't be doing this if I didn't care. It's a loveless job.
So what is your motivation then? Is it because you grew up in the area, or is it because you're seeing the pains right now, or what's the actual driving motivation?
Before I am anything, I am a Muslim woman, okay? And my faith drives me. And I, like I said, would be doing, if I have the ability to speak up for people, and I didn't do that, I would be doing myself a disservice, and I would be doing the people that I care about a disservice, and I would be doing a disservice to the people of Alum Rock. I feel like they've been neglected for so long, and somebody needs to step up. You can't always wait for someone else to come up and take up the mantle. Sometimes you've just got to do the difficult job, and unfortunately it is a difficult, loveless and thankless job, but I care enough to face all the criticisms as long as I can bring change, as long as I can have some material effect on the quality of life on the people of Alum Rock.
Okay. So during these podcasts, and this podcast just happened like overnight, and I was politically affiliated before, but I come to a point in my life where I thought, you know what, we need to hold our current councillors accountable, because Birmingham is taking a nosedive and a deep dive. Yeah. I engage with a lot of people. A common criticism I get across the city is that leading up to the election, candidates, councillors alike are out taking pictures, doing the bin bags. They've got their litter picker in one hand, the bin bag in the other hand, and they are giving it 10-10. They are knocking the doors. They're being all compassionate. But after they're elected, like you're saying now, you don't see them. Yeah. When was the last time you seen your Alum Rock councillor? Well, in their official capacity?
It's been a long time. And I won't speak for myself, but I'll speak for residents, and the residents who have said that she's been nowhere to be seen. Look, what the current setup in inner city areas, at the very least, is that our councillors are not working, they're campaigning. They don't show up at any other time. There's photo ops, and there's party invitations, and there's Facebook posts, and there's showing up during election time. I can only say that I'm going to be different. People will have to wait and see. But, I've already put in the groundwork to ensure that happens. I've got a WhatsApp group where people have my number, and I'm reachable at all hours of the day, and people do contact me.
And just on that note, I messaged you last night at 12:30.
Yeah.
And you responded.
I responded.
So she does respond.
I do respond. People message me at 1, people call me at 2 o'clock in the morning, and if it's something urgent, I've got this problem, I've got that problem, and I'll do whatever I can. And I do it because I actually do care, and I thrive off this. Like, community work is it's my passion. It's something that I live for. My kids are like, Mum, like, you're never home. And I'm like, you're gonna have to deal with this, because
you've got to be a role model, haven't you?
I wanna make Alum Rock better. My whole thing is rebuilding Alum Rock together, and I want to do it together. I engage with all community groups. I work with, we've got an event tomorrow with the Count Me In Forum, the Gold Ladies. They're a street watch group, and we've got a community, Alum Rock community celebration. You know, I worked with local businesses. I bought in.
So talking about businesses. Obviously, I was at the Alum Rock trade dinner a few days ago. What are the plans to support the business owners?
So I spoke to Uncle Ashik, who's the chair of the Alum Rock Traders Association. I spoke to him back, I want to say maybe September time, about turning Alum Rock into a business improvement district. And if you go on my TikTok, you'll see a post there about it. And I've spoken to Council Chairman Noel from the Soho bid, and I think it's something that would really be beneficial because it will create a contractual relationship between Alum Rock and the Alum Rock High Street and the councillors, and it will allow for there to be a kind of relationship where Alum Rock can hold the council to account when it comes to providing services, and there will be a ring-fenced amount of money that comes from the levies that can be reinvested into it. We used to have lights on Christmas and we used to have lights on Eid, and there should be Wi-Fi on the high street, there should be public toilets on the high street, there needs to be a car park. But the car park, unfortunately, was turned into a food court, which we've been told can't be enforced upon until it's open. So there can only be retrospective enforcement, which boggles my mind because there's clearly a problem with the procedures here. Because if you know something, if I was putting up an extension that was illegal in my house, I'd have them coming down on me like a ton of bricks. But you can have an illegal dropped curb, you can put gas and waste and all the rest of it.
But again, it goes back to my point where it's become a lawless postcode.
Yeah. No, actually, this bit is not lawless because I spoke to the councillor. I was at a meeting and I said, what's being done? And she said, well, nothing can be done until it's open. Well, actually, once it's open, and we all know this, and you've been involved in the business world, as have I, once it's open, they're going to put in an appeal. They're going to be running for a year. They're going to prove that they've hired people from Alum Rock. And wham, bam, we've got a food park opposite residence where there's going to be an increase of antisocial behaviour. There's going to be noise pollution, actual pollution. There's going to be ruts. And these people that have been living here for 30, 40, 50 years are going to have to bear the brunt of it because nobody wanted to do anything when it mattered to prevent it.
So when you stood as a councillor, your first choice, I literally believe, was Ward End.
It was Ward End.
Why the change?
So
You're passionate about Alum Rock?
I am passionate about... So when I was part of the Labour Party, I was offered many other areas to stand as councillor. And I had always said, I'm not going to do anything unless it's Alum Rock. But then when it went... I told you just before this recording started that how I decided I was going to be a councillor. And I was speaking to a friend, and my friend was like, look, Ward End is small. You've never done a public-facing role before. It's next door to Alum Rock. It's the same kind of demographic. I spent my life in Ward End Park and Ward End Library and the youth clubs and all the rest of it. She's like, you can have the same impact. It's the same demographic. You can have the same impact, and you're more likely to win in an area like Ward End. Then I made the announcement and then told my family and then told other people because it's just on a whim. And then I sat down, and a lot of people approached me from within Alum Rock. Elders approached me. My family sat down and spoke to me. I had other prominent figures from across Birmingham speak to me about it and say, we'll put everything behind you, and do where your heart is. We'll support you. So I did. And even that is, it's not easy to be able to stand up and say, you know what, I probably shouldn't have done that. And I have no qualms in admitting that I've made a mistake, and I should probably, and also Harris was in Alum Rock. Harris a brother to me, in Ward End, and he's standing. And I think two independents against each other probably wouldn't have been the best look. Yeah, we have similar politics and a similar outlook and similar goal. And if we can help each other as opposed to work against each other, that's better for us.
Okay, 30 seconds. Why should people vote for you?
People should vote for me because I am from Alum Rock. I care about Alum Rock. Alum Rock has been neglected for way too long, and Alum Rock needs a voice that is from the area, that cares about the area, that does not toe a party line, that is not afraid to hold truth to power, and will fight for the people of Alum Rock.
Thank you very much. Best of luck.
Thank you, Abid.
I look forward to following your campaign trail.
I'll invite you to the celebration once I'm in.
Yep, I look forward to it. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
People, thank you for tuning in, and catch you very soon.